Listen carefully. When words fail, silence roars. When you stop reacting, their ego starts collapsing. You see, the most powerful weapon you have is not anger, not arguments, but silence. Because silence is not weakness, silence is intelligence in action. The ego thrives on conflict. It feeds on your reactions, your emotions, your need to prove something. The moment you argue, you give their ego oxygen. The moment you explain yourself, you validate their power. But when you choose silence, their ego is left gasping, desperate for attention, for drama, for validation. Think about this. Why do people provoke you? Why do they insult you? Because they want control over you. They want to dictate your emotions. But if you remain silent, if you smile and walk away, they are left with nothing but their own emptiness. That is the real punishment. Silence is a weapon, not a weakness. It is the most underestimated force in this world. Yet it has the power to shatter egos, break illusions, and turn the strongest into the weakest. The moment you realize this, your entire world changes. Because silence is not about being passive. It is not about being fearful. It is about control. It is about mastering yourself so completely that no one else can dictate your emotions, your reactions, or your peace. People have been conditioned to believe that strength is in speaking, in fighting back, in proving a point. But that is exactly what the weak want you to believe. They want your energy. They want your reaction. They want you to fight. Because when you fight, you step onto their battlefield. And once you are there, you have already lost. The true masters of life never lower themselves into meaningless battles. They do not waste their breath on proving their worth. Because real power is not in noise. It is in presence. Look at the greatest warriors in history. The kings, the sages, the legends. They never wasted time arguing with fools. They never responded to every insult thrown at them because they understood something most people never will. Silence forces your opponent to deal with themselves. And nothing terrifies a weak person more than facing their own ego, their own emptiness. When someone attacks you, they are looking for a response. They are testing your emotions. They want to shake you to see if you will break. And the moment you react, they win. But when you choose silence, when you look them in the eye and do not flinch, when you smile and walk away, you become untouchable. Their words lose power. Their ego, the very thing that made them come for you, begins to crumble under its own weight. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in a room are often the quietest? They do not need to prove anything. They do not seek validation. Their presence alone demands respect. Because when you are truly strong, you do not need to shout. You do not need to argue. You simply exist and the world adjusts to your presence. That is real dominance. That is real power. And yet, the world will try to convince you otherwise. It will tell you that you must fight back, that you must defend yourself, that you must prove your worth. But let me tell you something. When you truly know who you are, you do not need to prove anything to anyone. Let them talk. Let them throw their words like weapons. A warrior does not fear the barking of stray dogs. A king does not engage with peasants throwing stones at his castle. And you, my friend, are far above the petty battles of insecure minds. The moment you realize this, you become free. Free from the need to explain yourself. Free from the urge to defend your reputation. Free from the burden of proving your worth. Because your worth does not come from words. It comes from within. It comes from knowing that silence is not a sign of weakness. It is the highest form of strength. When you choose silence, you are telling the world, I do not need your approval. I do not need your validation. I do not need to waste my energy on meaningless battles. And that, my friend, is the moment you become truly powerful. Because no one can control a person who does not react. No one can manipulate a mind that is at peace. No one can break someone who has nothing to prove. Do you understand the power you hold? The moment you master silence, you become untouchable. No insult can shake you, no criticism can break you, no attack can move you. Because you have risen above it all. The weak argue, the strong observe. The insecure seek attention, the powerful move in silence. And the most beautiful part, silence always wins. Always. Because words are temporary, arguments fade, battles end, but silence lingers. Silence stays in their minds. Silence forces them to question themselves. And that, my friend, is how you destroy their ego without lifting a single finger. Ego feeds on reaction. Starve it and it will die. Imagine this. You're walking down the street and someone shouts an insult at you. Maybe they mock your appearance, your work, your choices. What do most people do? They turn, they react, they engage. Why? Because the natural instinct of the human mind is to defend itself. But ask yourself, does a lion turn when a stray dog barks? Does the sky argue when a crow caws? No, because reacting gives power to the powerless. Ego is like a parasite. It cannot survive on its own. It needs something to latch onto. It feeds off energy, attention, and most of all, your reaction. The more you argue, the stronger it gets. The more you fight, the more it grows. But the moment you refuse to engage, the moment you stop feeding it, it begins to shrink. It suffocates, it crumbles. Think of it like a fire. A raging fire demands oxygen. The more you blow on it, the bigger it gets. But what happens when you stop? When you remove the air, the fuel, the fire dies, slowly at first, then all at once. This is exactly how ego works. The moment you stop responding, the moment you stop justifying yourself, the moment you stop explaining, ego collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. Have you ever had someone pick a fight with you for no reason? They say something rude, they try to provoke you, they push your buttons just to see if they can control you. And what do most people do? They react. They raise their voice. They explain themselves. They argue. But here's the truth. If you react, they win. Because that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to control your emotions, to dictate your mood, to make you dance to their tune. And when you react, you give them power over you. But what happens when you don't react? When you just smile and walk away? When you show them that their words have no effect on you? They are left with nothing. Their ego, which was so desperate for validation, for attention, for engagement, suddenly has no fuel to burn. And that is when their frustration begins. They expected a battle, they wanted a war, but you gave them silence. And silence is the one thing ego cannot handle. Look around you. The people who constantly need to prove themselves, who argue, who fight for the last word. Are they truly strong, or are they just insecure? Strength is never in how loud you are. Strength is in control. A person who controls their tongue, who chooses where to place their energy, who doesn't let others dictate their emotions, that is a person who is truly powerful. Let me tell you a secret. The next time someone tries to test you, tries to trigger you, tries to push you into an argument, don't react. Watch what happens. Watch how their energy shifts. Watch how they start to feel uncomfortable in their own skin. Because without your reaction, they are left with nothing but their own reflection. And most people cannot handle that. Because ego thrives on attention. It needs to be acknowledged. It needs a stage. And the moment you refuse to give it that stage, it begins to crumble. This is the power you hold. The power to destroy an enemy without lifting a single finger. The power to disarm an opponent without speaking a single word. The power to walk away and leave them drowning in their own ego. Try this in your daily life. The next time someone insults you, don't respond. The next time someone challenges you unnecessarily, smile and walk away. The next time someone seeks to drag you into their drama, refuse to participate. And watch what happens. Watch how the energy shifts. Watch how you take back your power. Because the one who stays silent is the one who stays in control. The one who does not react is the one who holds the real strength. The one who refuses to feed the ego is the one who ultimately wins. Always. Arguing with fools makes you one of them. Walk away. Have you ever found yourself in a heated argument with someone who refuses to see reason? Someone who twists your words, refuses to listen, and only wants to prove themselves right? Think back to how that argument ended. Did you walk away feeling victorious, or did you feel exhausted, frustrated, and drained? You see, a fool does not argue to understand, they argue to win. And when you engage, you are stepping into their trap. A fool's greatest weapon is their ability to pull you down to their level. They provoke, they mock, they push you until you react. And the moment you react, you are no longer in control. You have entered their battlefield, playing their game by their rules. And guess what? A fool will always beat you in an argument. Not because they are right, but because they are experienced in nonsense. They are not looking for truth. They are not searching for wisdom. They thrive in chaos. And when you engage, you become a part of their circus. Think of a man shouting nonsense in the middle of the street. You see him waving his arms, screaming about things that make no sense. If you stop and start arguing with him, what happens? Do people see you as the wise one? Or do they see two fools shouting at each other? That is what happens when you argue with people who are not ready to understand. From the outside, there is no difference between the fool and the one arguing with the fool. There is an old saying, never wrestle with a pig, you both get dirty. But the pig enjoys it. This is exactly how foolish arguments work. You get dragged into the mud, into unnecessary conflict, into negativity. And in the end, what do you gain? Nothing. But what do you lose? Your peace, your time, your energy. That is a price too high to pay for something so meaningless. Imagine you are standing in front of a mirror. The mirror shows your reflection exactly as it is. Now imagine a broken mirror. No matter how much you try to fix your reflection, it will always appear distorted. That is what arguing with a fool is like. No matter how much wisdom you share, no matter how logical your words are, their mind is already broken. They do not want to see the truth. They only want to hear their own voice. Have you ever had someone twist your words? You say something simple, and they turn it into something completely different. This is what fools do. They do not listen to understand, they listen to respond. They are not looking for knowledge, they are looking for validation. And when you argue with them, you are giving them exactly what they want. Attention, engagement, fuel for their foolishness. But the moment you stop engaging, the moment you walk away, you strip them of their power. They are left arguing with the wind, with no one to listen, no one to react, and that silence, that is what destroys them. Because nothing frustrates a fool more than being ignored. Try it. The next time someone picks a fight over something meaningless, pause, look at them, and then, without a word, walk away. Watch their reaction. They will fume, they will rant, they will try harder to pull you back, but do not give them what they want. Because your energy is too precious to waste on people who do not deserve it. The greatest minds in history did not waste their time arguing with fools. They walked their own path, untouched by meaningless debates, unbothered by the opinions of those who could not see beyond their own ego. Be that person. Protect your peace. Walk away. Let fools argue with themselves. Because in the end, the one who walks away is the one who truly wins. Silence forces them to face themselves, and that is their greatest fear. Most people are terrified of silence, not because silence is empty, but because silence is a mirror. When there is no noise to distract them, no argument to hide behind, no reaction to fuel their ego, they are left alone with their own thoughts, their own insecurities, their own weaknesses. And that is their greatest fear. Look around you. People fill their lives with distractions, constant chatter, endless scrolling, unnecessary arguments, because they do not want to be alone with their own minds. The moment you take away those distractions, the moment you refuse to engage, you force them to face the one thing they have been running from all their lives, themselves. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people get when you do not react to their provocations? They push, they prod, they try to trigger you, but when you remain silent, they begin to shift. They fidget, their confidence starts to shake. Their ego, which once seemed so powerful, begins to crack under the weight of its own emptiness. Because they expected a battle, they expected resistance, they expected validation for their need to dominate. But instead you give them nothing. And in that nothingness, they are left exposed. Silence is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is power. It is the most sophisticated way of showing that you are in control. Not just of the situation, but of yourself. When you refuse to engage, you refuse to be controlled. You strip away their ability to manipulate your emotions, and that terrifies them. Because now they must sit with their own thoughts, their own actions, their own reality. Think about a person who constantly picks fights, always looking for drama, always needing attention. They survive off reactions. They thrive off emotional responses. The more you argue, the more fuel you give them. But the moment you choose silence, their power over you disappears. And what happens next? They are forced to deal with the real issue, themselves. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone is desperate for your reaction? They insult you, they provoke you, they try to push your buttons. But when you stay silent, they become uncomfortable. They start questioning themselves. Did I say the wrong thing? Why isn't this working? Why aren't they reacting? Their confidence starts to crumble. Because without your response, they have nothing to stand on. Silence is the ultimate test. It reveals who is truly strong and who is merely pretending. The insecure need constant noise to cover up their fears. The truly strong do not seek validation from others. They do not need to prove their point in every argument. They do not waste their time explaining themselves to people who do not want to listen. There is a reason why the most powerful people in history have always been the most composed. They do not engage in every battle. They do not respond to every insult. They do not allow others to dictate their emotions. Because they understand one thing: silence is the most powerful response you can give to a fool. Try this in your daily life. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remain silent. Do not argue, do not explain. Just look them in the eye, smile, and walk away. Watch what happens. Watch how they struggle. Watch how their ego begins to collapse under its own weight. Because without your reaction, they are forced to deal with the reality of who they are. And for many, that is a reality they cannot handle. You hold more power in your silence than you ever will in your words. Use it wisely. Let them drown in their own noise while you stand in the calm of your own presence. Because the moment you stop feeding their ego, you force them to face the truth. And the truth is something they have been running from their entire life. Your silence is a storm they cannot predict, and that disturbs them. People expect reactions. They expect anger when they insult you. They expect tears when they hurt you. They expect arguments when they challenge you. It makes them feel powerful, in control, superior. They throw words like weapons, expecting you to catch them, to get wounded, to throw them back. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you remain unmoved? When you do not flinch? Do not fight. Do not give them the drama they crave. They panic because now they have no idea what happens next. Silence is unpredictable. It is a force beyond their understanding. It is like standing in an open field, feeling the air shift, the temperature drop, the pressure in the atmosphere change. They can sense that something is coming, but they don't know what. It disturbs them, unnerves them, unsettles them. Because most people do not fear a loud opponent, they fear the quiet one. The one who does not react, the one who does not waste words, the one who simply watches. Have you ever noticed how people get uncomfortable in silence? Sit in a room full of people and say nothing, just observe. Within moments, someone will speak, someone will shift in their seat, someone will force a conversation just to break the silence. Because silence is power. It demands presence. It forces truth to rise to the surface. And those who thrive on deception, manipulation and control, those who hide behind loud words and empty arguments, cannot handle it. When someone insults you and you do not respond, they begin to question themselves. Did I go too far? Why isn't this working? Are they planning something? Their mind starts running in circles. They expected a storm, but instead they are met with an eerie calm. And that is terrifying, because now they are at the mercy of the unknown. In war, the most feared enemy is not the one who shouts threats. It is the one who moves in silence. The one who does not reveal their next move, the one who lets their opponent exhaust themselves, waste their energy, and then strikes when the time is right. Silence is strategy. Silence is intelligence. It is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is control. Think of a master chess player. Do they slam their pieces on the board? Do they argue over every move? No. They sit in silence. thinking 10 steps ahead, watching their opponent, waiting for them to make a mistake. And when the time comes, they move with precision, with certainty, with purpose. This is what silence does. It allows you to remain in control while the other person loses theirs. In life, you will meet people who try to provoke you, who try to pull you into unnecessary battles, who test your patience just to see if they can break you. Do not give them what they want. Do not give them the satisfaction of knowing they have power over your emotions. Instead, give them silence. Let them fight a battle with themselves while you walk away with your peace intact. Try it. The next time someone speaks to you with disrespect, pause. Look at them. Say nothing. Do not defend yourself. Do not argue. Do not react. Watch how their expression changes. Watch how their confidence begins to shake. Because your silence tells them, you are not important enough to disturb my peace. And that truth is more powerful than any words you could ever say. There is a reason why kings, warriors, and great leaders have always mastered the art of silence. They do not waste energy on meaningless battles. They do not seek validation from the noise of the world. They operate in stillness, in patience, in self-mastery. They know that real power does not come from proving a point. It comes from knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the talking. Your silence is not emptiness. It is a message that says, I do not react to fools. I do not engage in games. I do not lower myself to the level of those who seek to control me. And that message, it is louder than any argument, stronger than any insult, and more terrifying than any confrontation. So the next time someone tries to shake you, remain still. The next time someone tries to draw you into their drama, refuse to participate. The next time someone expects a reaction, surprise them with silence. Because your silence is a storm they cannot predict. And that is what truly disturbs them. The one who stays silent holds the real power. Because they are in control of themselves. Power is not in the loudest voice. It is not in the one who argues the most, shouts the hardest, or forces their opinion onto others. True power belongs to the one who does not need to prove anything, who does not react to every provocation, who remains still while the rest of the world fights meaningless battles. The one who stays silent, who chooses to walk away instead of engaging in foolishness, is the one who is truly in control of the situation, of their emotions, of themselves. Most people are slaves to their emotions. Someone insults them, they react. Someone challenges them, they argue. Someone offends them, they explode in anger. And in that moment, they have already lost. Because the one who can control your reaction controls you. If a simple word can make you furious, if an insult can steal your peace, then you are not in control. Someone else is pulling the strings. But when you choose silence, when you refuse to give them the reaction they seek, you take back your power. You are no longer a puppet of their words, but a master of your own mind. Think of a candle in the wind. If the wind is strong, the flame flickers, dances wildly, and eventually gets blown out. But if the candle is shielded, protected, unshaken, the wind has no power over it. That is the power of silence. When people try to shake you, insult you, test you, and you remain unmoved, you show them that their words mean nothing. That no matter how strong the wind blows, your flame will not go out. Have you ever noticed how people who talk the most usually have the least control over themselves? They argue, they rant, they raise their voice to prove their point, but in the end, they only expose their own insecurities. Their need to be heard, to be right, to dominate the conversation, it comes from fear. Fear of being ignored, fear of being wrong, fear of being powerless. But the one who can sit in silence, who does not react out of impulse, that is the one who holds real strength. Look at the great minds of history. The most powerful leaders, the wisest thinkers, the most respected figures. Did they waste their time in pointless debates? Did they engage in every argument? No. They knew when to speak and when to remain silent. They knew that true power is not in proving yourself to others, but in knowing yourself so well that you do not need anyone's approval. There is a reason why silence is feared. Because it is unknown, unpredictable, untouchable. A person who reacts emotionally is easy to read, easy to control. But a person who remains silent, you cannot tell what they are thinking, what they are planning, what they will do next. And that makes them powerful. It makes them someone who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be dragged into unnecessary drama, who cannot be defeated by mere words. Imagine someone trying to provoke you. They throw insults, they mock you, they expect you to fight back. But instead you do nothing. You look at them, not with anger, not with frustration, but with calmness. You do not argue, you do not explain, you do not react. Watch what happens next. They will become restless. They will try harder to get a response. Because without your reaction, they have no power. Their insults fall into emptiness. Their provocations lose their meaning. And soon they will either walk away or destroy themselves with their own anger. Silence is not about weakness. It is not about fear. It is about understanding that not every battle is worth fighting. It is about knowing that the strongest warrior is not the one who fights the most, but the one who chooses their battles wisely. Because real power is not in external control, it is in self-control. The ability to master your own emotions, to protect your own peace, to refuse to let the outside world dictate your inner world. Try this in your own life. The next time someone tries to push you into an argument, do not engage. The next time someone tries to get a reaction from you, remain still. The next time someone insults you, let them speak into the void. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how they struggle. Because the one who stays silent is the one who holds the real power. And the one who holds the real power is the one who is in control of themselves. Silence is the ultimate revenge, because it shows them they have no power over you. Nothing unsettles a person more than realizing they have no control over you. When someone insults you, when they try to hurt you, when they attempt to provoke a reaction, what do they want? They want power. They want to manipulate your emotions. They want to control your state of mind. And the moment you react, they win. They know they have entered your space, disturbed your peace, affected your thoughts. But when you respond with silence, when you refuse to engage, when you do not flinch, you deliver the strongest blow possible. Indifference. Indifference is deadly. It makes people feel insignificant. It makes them feel powerless. It forces them to sit with their own actions and realize that no matter what they do, they cannot break you. And this is what truly destroys them. Because for a person whose existence is built on provoking reactions, silence is unbearable. They expect you to fight back, to defend yourself, to throw words like weapons. But instead they are left standing alone in their own storm, fighting an enemy that does not even acknowledge them. Think of the most powerful revenge stories in history. Did the wisest people waste time arguing? Did they scream and fight back? No. They mastered the art of patience, of silence, of walking away with their dignity intact while their enemies destroyed themselves with their own actions. Because silence is not weakness, it is a statement. It is a way of saying, you are not worth my energy, you do not deserve my attention, you have no control over me. Have you ever seen someone argue with a brick wall? It is frustrating. It is exhausting. It makes them look ridiculous. This is exactly what happens when you refuse to engage with negativity. The person trying to provoke you will feel like they are fighting a battle alone, throwing punches into thin air, and soon they will realize the battle is not with you, it is with themselves. Imagine someone at work trying to make you look bad. They spread lies, they criticize you in front of others, they do everything they can to get under your skin. They are waiting for you to break, to lash out, to prove them right. But you stay silent. You do your work with focus. You continue to grow. You do not waste a single moment defending yourself. And in the end, they crumble. Because while they were busy attacking you, you were busy rising above. That is true revenge. Not by fighting fire with fire, but by making their fire burn itself out. People who seek control over others are deeply insecure. They feed on reactions because it makes them feel important. It makes them feel like they matter. But when you do not react, you take away their fuel. You force them to face the truth that without your attention, they are nothing. Their words lose meaning. Their insults fall flat. Their games have no play. And that realization, it shatters them. Think of a toxic relationship where one person constantly seeks to manipulate the other. They use guilt, anger, emotional blackmail, all to get a reaction. But the moment you decide to detach, the moment you stop responding to their chaos, their power over you collapses. You become untouchable. They may yell, they may plead, they may try every trick in the book, but if you stay silent, if you remain unshaken, they will eventually exhaust themselves. Because the one thing they cannot fight is silence. Silence is the ultimate revenge because it forces people to face their own reflection. When you do not react, they are left alone with their own negativity, their own anger, their own toxic energy. And most people cannot handle that. They do not want to confront their own emptiness. They want distractions, they want fights, they want engagement. But when you refuse to play their game, they are forced to sit in the mess they created. And that, more than anything else, destroys them. Try it in your own life. The next time someone tries to provoke you, do not respond. The next time someone attacks you with words, remain calm. The next time someone wants a reaction, deny them that satisfaction. Watch how they struggle. Watch how they unravel. Because silence is not just the absence of noise, it is the presence of power. And in a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, the one who can stay silent holds the real control. When you remain silent, people start fearing what you might be thinking. Silence is the most mysterious and powerful weapon a person can wield. It makes people restless. It forces them to think, to assume, to overanalyze every move you make. When you do not react, when you do not respond, when you do not give them a clue about what is going on inside your mind, you become an enigma. And people fear what they do not understand. Think about it. Why do people fear the dark? Because they do not know what is inside it. Their mind starts playing tricks on them, imagining things that might not even be there. This is exactly what happens when you remain silent in situations where people expect you to speak. They anticipate a reaction, a response, a clue, but when they get nothing, they start filling in the blanks themselves. And most of the time, their imagination punishes them more than your words ever could. Have you ever noticed how, in a heated argument, the person who stays the most composed wins? The one who raises their voice, who screams, who throws words like daggers. They seem powerful at first, but the one who simply listens, who lets them burn themselves out, who does not engage in the emotional chaos, that is the one who truly holds the power. Because while the loud one is revealing everything, anger, insecurity, weakness, the silent one reveals nothing. And in that nothingness, the mind of the other person goes wild. Silence makes people question everything. Did I say something wrong? Are they planning something? What do they know that I don't? Why aren't they reacting? These thoughts become louder than any words you could have spoken. This is why powerful leaders, great strategists, and wise individuals often choose silence over unnecessary talk. They know that words can be analyzed, but silence leaves people lost, grasping at straws, drowning in their own uncertainty. Imagine a scenario where someone insults you in front of others. They expect you to retaliate, to defend yourself, to fight back, but instead, you just look at them, expressionless, and say nothing. You do not show anger, you do not justify yourself, you do not lower yourself to their level. What happens next? They start to feel uneasy. They expected a battle, but instead they are met with an impenetrable wall of calm. They start to wonder, did I go too far? Why are they not reacting? What are they thinking? This is the moment when silence becomes more terrifying than words. Because words can be challenged, argued, and dismissed. But silence lingers. It haunts. It leaves people questioning themselves, replaying the moment over and over in their minds, trying to figure out what just happened. And that uncertainty is a much heavier burden than any insult you could have thrown back at them. Look at the great minds of history, monks, warriors, philosophers, and wise rulers. They never wasted their breath on foolishness. They never reacted in haste. They understood that when you speak too soon, you reveal too much. But when you hold back, when you observe, when you stay silent, you make people come to you. You force them to reveal themselves first. You let them destroy themselves with their own assumptions and overthinking. Think about a job interview. If a candidate answers every question too quickly, without taking a moment to think, they seem desperate, unprepared, or nervous. But the candidate who takes a pause, who allows silence to settle before speaking, who answers with calmness and precision, immediately commands more respect. The pause, the silence, it makes them seem thoughtful, confident, and in control. The same rule applies in personal relationships. If someone pulls away from you, do not chase them with words. Do not beg, do not plead, do not explain. Let your silence do the talking. Let them sit in the space you create. Let them wonder. Because the moment someone starts to wonder about you, they start valuing you, they start fearing what they might lose, they start realizing your worth. People who fear silence are usually the ones who talk too much, trying to fill every gap with meaningless words. But the one who understands the power of silence knows that sometimes saying nothing is the most powerful statement you can make. It shows confidence, it shows self-control, it shows that you do not need to prove yourself to anyone. Try this in your own life. The next time someone expects a reaction from you, give them nothing. Watch how they start to second-guess themselves. Watch how their own thoughts become their worst enemy. Because when you remain silent, you are not just holding back words, you are planting a seed of doubt in their mind. And that seed will grow into fear, into respect, into an unshakable realization that you are not someone to be underestimated. Silence forces people to confront their own flaws, making them uncomfortable. Most people spend their lives avoiding their own reflection. Not the one in the mirror, but the one that reveals their weaknesses, insecurities, and the ugliness they try to hide. They drown themselves in noise, in distractions, in endless conversations, because silence is unbearable. But when you refuse to engage, when you do not react, when you meet their negativity with stillness, you leave them with no escape. You force them to sit with themselves, to face their own flaws, to hear their own mind, without the comfort of outside distractions. And that is when the discomfort begins. Imagine a person who thrives on belittling others. They insult, they provoke, they manipulate, all to feed their ego, all to cover up their own insecurities. But what happens when their words fall into silence? What happens when the person they try to break does not flinch, does not fight back, does not acknowledge their existence? They are left alone with their own words, with their own negativity. The insults they threw into the air start to echo back at them. Suddenly they start questioning themselves. Why didn't they react? Did I go too far? Am I the one in the wrong? That is the power of silence. It is like holding up a mirror to someone's soul. It strips away their distractions, their excuses, their ability to shift blame. It forces them to confront the truth they have been running from. And that truth, it is often the most painful thing a person can face. Have you ever noticed how guilty people often try to explain themselves? Even when no one is accusing them, they talk too much, they defend themselves even when no one is questioning them. Why? Because deep down, they are battling their own conscience. But when you stay silent, when you do not give them the relief of an argument or a justification, their own mind becomes their worst enemy. The silence magnifies their guilt. It makes them wrestle with the things they have done, the words they have spoken, the damage they have caused. And there is no escape, because the only voice left is their own. Think about a person who constantly lies. They manipulate situations, they twist reality, they create illusions to serve themselves. But when they are met with silence, when no one plays along with their stories, when no one argues with their falsehoods, they begin to drown in their own fabrications. They start second-guessing themselves. Their own words start to suffocate them. They realize that without an audience, their lies have no meaning, no validation, no strength. And that realization, it terrifies them. Silence is a magnifying glass for the soul. It amplifies everything a person tries to suppress. The insecurities they mask with arrogance. The guilt they hide behind anger. The self-doubt they cover with loudness. all of it becomes unbearable in the absence of noise. And when they no longer have someone else to project onto, when they can no longer distract themselves with arguments or conflicts, they are left with no choice but to see themselves as they truly are. Imagine a workplace where a toxic boss tries to control everyone through intimidation. They shout, they demand, they use fear to maintain authority. But then one day, their employees stop reacting. They do their work in silence. They no longer show fear. They no longer respond to the threats. Suddenly, the boss's power begins to crumble. Why? Because their authority was never real. It was built on the reactions of others. Without those reactions, they are forced to face the fact that they are not respected, only tolerated. And nothing shakes a person more than realizing their control was only an illusion. In personal relationships, silence is often the most powerful response to toxicity. When someone constantly disrespects you, when they take you for granted, when they hurt you and expect you to keep coming back, staying silent, walking away, refusing to engage is what makes them realize the gravity of their actions. The moment you stop justifying, stop arguing, stop explaining, they are left with nothing but themselves. And for many, that is the most uncomfortable place to be. Have you ever noticed how some people talk excessively, always needing to fill the space with words? It is not because they have something meaningful to say. It is because they are afraid of what silence will reveal. They are afraid that without the constant noise, they will have to face their own thoughts. That is why silence is powerful. It forces people to stop running, to stop avoiding, to stop pretending. Try this in your own life. The next time someone wrongs you, do not argue. Do not waste your breath trying to make them see their mistake. Simply walk away. Leave them alone with their own thoughts. Let them sit in the silence you create. Because in that silence, they will hear the one voice they cannot escape, their own conscience. And that, more than anything, will shake them to their core. Silence makes people crave your presence, making them realize your true worth. In a world where people are constantly talking, constantly seeking attention, constantly trying to prove their importance, the one who remains silent stands out. It is human nature to take things for granted until they are gone. When you remove your words, your energy, your presence from someone's life, you create a void. And that void makes them realize what you truly meant to them. Think about a time when someone close to you suddenly stopped reaching out. Maybe it was a friend, a partner, a family member. At first you did not notice. You assumed they were just busy, that they would come back. But as days passed, as their silence grew louder, something shifted. You started wondering. You started missing them. You started questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Why aren't they talking to me? Have I lost them? This is the power of silence. It does not push, it pulls. It does not beg, it makes people realize. It does not chase, it lets others come to their own conclusions. And most of the time, those conclusions are far more powerful than anything you could have said. Think about relationships. When you constantly explain yourself, when you constantly try to prove your worth, when you constantly seek validation, people do not value you as much. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you remove your presence, that is when they begin to see your true worth. Imagine a woman who has always been available for a man. She answers his calls immediately. She is always there when he needs her. She always puts him first. Over time, he starts taking her for granted. He assumes she will always be there, no matter how he treats her. But one day, she stops responding. She stops waiting. She stops being available. What happens? He panics. He starts wondering, where is she? Why is she not replying? Has she moved on? His mind starts playing games on him. He starts missing the presence he once overlooked. This is the reality of human nature. We value absence more than presence. We appreciate something only when it is no longer easily accessible. The things that are always available seem ordinary, but the things that disappear become treasures. Think about luxury brands. Why do people crave them? Because they are not available to everyone. They are rare, they are exclusive, they are hard to get. The same principle applies to people. If you're always available, always responding, always present, you become just another noise in the background. But when you step back, when you become rare, when you create space, suddenly people start craving you. Silence works the same way. It makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to wonder. It forces them to evaluate their own actions. And most importantly, it makes them realize your worth. Because when you do not beg for attention, when you do not fight for a place in someone's life, when you do not explain your silence, people start chasing you. Think about successful people. Do they spend their time explaining their value? No. They let their absence speak for them. They let people feel the impact of their silence. They let their work, their presence, or lack of it, make the statement. The same rule applies in friendships. Have you ever had a friend who only reached out when they needed something? You always gave, you always listened, you always supported them. But the moment you needed them, they were nowhere to be found. What happens when you stop being available? When you stop answering immediately? When you stop always being the one who puts in the effort? Suddenly they start realizing what they lost. People do not miss you because you beg them to. They miss you when your silence speaks louder than words. When they feel the space you used to fill. When they sit in the emptiness of your absence and suddenly realize how much you meant to them. Try this in your own life. The next time you feel undervalued, the next time you feel ignored, the next time you feel like your presence is taken for granted, do not argue, do not explain, do not beg for attention. Just step back, go silent, disappear for a while, let them feel your absence, and watch how slowly they start craving your presence. Because nothing is more powerful than the realization of loss. And nothing makes a person realize your worth more than the silence you leave behind. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is the most powerful statement you will ever make. In a world that thrives on noise, on endless arguments, on desperate validation, your silence becomes a force that cannot be ignored. It is the language of strength, the weapon of the wise, the tool of the unstoppable. Look at history. The greatest warriors did not waste their breath on empty threats. They let their actions speak. The most influential leaders did not beg for attention. They commanded it with their presence. The most powerful minds did not argue with fools. They let time prove them right. And the most respected souls did not chase love, friendships, or approval. They simply became so valuable that people regretted losing them. You must become that person. The person whose absence is noticed more than their presence. The person whose silence speaks louder than the noise of 1,000 voices. The person who does not waste energy on explaining, justifying, or proving. Because the moment you stop responding, you force the world to listen. Think about it. When a lion walks through the jungle, does it roar to announce its presence? No. It moves in silence, and still everything around it feels its power. That is what true strength looks like. That is what real control feels like. And that is how you must carry yourself in life. Never beg for respect, command it. Never chase love, let it find you. Never fight for a place in someone's life. Make them realize they lost something priceless when they let you go. There will always be people who try to break you, who test your limits, who push you to react. But your greatest power is in your restraint. When you do not give them what they want, when you do not stoop to their level, when you do not let them pull you into their chaos, they destroy themselves. Their own words, their own guilt, their own insecurities will eat them alive. Your silence will be the mirror they cannot escape. And in that mirror, they will see their own failure, their own arrogance, their own downfall. Remember, people do not value what is always available. They do not miss what never leaves. They do not crave what constantly seeks their approval. But the moment you remove yourself, the moment you choose silence over explanation, the moment you let your absence do the talking, that is when they realize. That is when they regret. That is when they feel the weight of what they took for granted. So stop explaining yourself. Stop proving your worth. Stop reacting to every insult, every betrayal, every moment of disrespect. Just step back. Just watch. Just let your silence work for you. Because the loudest statement you will ever make is the one you never speak. The world will hear it. The people who doubted you will feel it. And those who underestimated you will regret it. Your silence will make them uncomfortable. Your absence will make them realize. Your lack of reaction will make them crumble. Because nothing haunts a person more than knowing they lost someone who never needed them but chose to give them a chance. Let them sit with that. Let them drown in it. Let them learn in your silence what they never understood in your words. Because when all is said and done, the most powerful voices in history were never the loudest. They were the ones that left the deepest echoes in the minds of those who once refused to listen.